Hey everyone, welcome to the Revenue Growth Architects podcast. It's Chrissy and Charlie here. And yeah, we have a fun episode. Well, at least to start. I think it's a funny topic, but
fun to us.
But you wouldn't know
Audience
about the inspiration for this, Charlie, because so one of the things that I talked about in the newsletter today was I was doing like a Peloton ride with one of my favorite, instructors, Cody, if people do Peloton. And he talked about the presidential fitness test and how he was like really good at doing the sit and reach, where you like literally had to just be measured on how far you could get your arms.
Like touch your toes kind of thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like even further than that. Yeah. And they had this like box where you'd like measure where your fingers like landed.
How old?
I mean, I feel like we started it like in first grade or something. I don't know, or second grade. But you do it. I feel like the memories of I feel like for that actually no, it was later. It was like middle school. Yeah, middle school.
Okay.
And then high school. Yeah. But honestly, someone fact check me if it happens earlier. But I think now I don't remember doing the mile run until I was much older. So but anyway, I had a mile run, a shuttle run, sit-ups, pull-ups, which was the worst one. That was like the traumatizing.
Yeah, like what kid can do pull-ups?
Exactly. I don't know.
Could anyone do any?
Gymnasts. I feel like boys could, like some boys could, especially
knock out a few pull-ups.
But like,
oh yeah, in high school, I guess. But like when they're younger,
yeah,
might be a bit tricky.
I hated the mile, not because I couldn't do it, but because I got sweat a lot, and then I had to go to like another period class like afterward. It was the worst.
It reminds me of the beep test in England. I think we were talking about this the other night, right? Where like you're in a gym, and you have to like run to one side of it, and every time it beeps, you have to be able to get to the other side before it beeps, and the beeps just get closer and closer together, and basically everyone throws up at the end. So that was what we did in England. We did
that in America at PE for sure.
You did?
Yeah,
we didn't do all the. I think we just like we would do that kind of stuff for like rugby and kind of all that kind of thing, but not like a test. It wasn't a test.
Yeah, like you got a scorecard, and then also if you didn't finish the mile, you had to redo it, which is like.
How would you not finish the mile? Would it not be like
you have to be under a certain time?
Oh, under a time.
Yeah.
So then, what if you didn't finish it under the time again? Would you have to keep doing it?
I don't know.
Or was it just like you just have to just do another mile if you didn't?
You have to like try again at a second.
And how quick was it?
I think it's usually you only have like an hour to do the full test because it's only for the amount of time.
Oh, it's like all of the things back to back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like you had to get at least I feel like it was harsh. It was like a 10-minute mile or something. But someone fact check me on that too. I'll look at it after. But people didn't do it. Like some people would just get like a stitch and then like halfway through just be like, I'm not doing this anymore. Anywho, I do think it was a horrible testing thing because if you're trying to motivate people to work out, I'm not sure that's the way to do it, especially teenagers who don't even want to be working out in front of their peers. But unless they are doing something that they like. But anywho, it inspired me though, because I was like, okay, honestly, that test, because now being fit, I'm like, that would be an interesting test to do, right?
Yeah, we should do
it. And
I
like fitness tests. But doing it on my own so that no one's judging me. But I was like, okay, well, what if there was like a go-to-market ops fitness test that you needed to run and a company could get, it's kind of like doing an audit, but just like, okay, how do we get a good sense of like, are these things working properly? And so I did that. I had a little bit of a noodle and I thought, okay, these are some tests that I think would be worthwhile. And for companies of all sizes, I think there could be some tests on here that maybe companies of different maturities would benefit from. Like different tests maybe might be beneficial for them, but I try to keep it more to what most companies would.
Okay.
So, well, actually, could you guess? And you may have already read.
I read your newsletter.
Oh,
so
okay.
I know. Okay. Although I might have forgotten a few. But.
Yeah. All right. Well, the first one, I feel like this is the test that we suggest people do all the time anyway, and that would be like the inbound lead test. So I want to go through like how to perform it, but essentially I would say take like 2 test leads. I honestly wouldn't do the 2 test leads sometimes because if you have a good enough program for your inbound leads, if it's a junky test lead or your own, like it's going to get filtered out. If anything, do that and make sure it does get filtered out. But I would actually take real life leads, like take one from like a contact us recently, and then take another one from like an offline channel, and then dive into like what happened to them. Did they hit a sync error? Did they make it to CRM in a timely manner? Did they get routed properly? And did they go through all the processes that you expected them to do before all that? The reason why I like offline and online is sometimes things are just optimized for online channels, and like but also you want to optimize for online channels. In some ways, those offline channels most of the time we're optimized for online, not offline. So offline channels usually require a list import, and there's so much like
Yeah.
errors that can happen there.
There's a
So
lot of steps for people to follow that they often don't follow perfectly.
yeah, and then
then something
also like
breaks.
the list size is large, and you might hit sync errors because of
Mhm.
that and stuff like that. So if anything, find like an attendee list or something and pick one of those people because it's likely you could see some there. So yeah, and we call this like we usually talk about speed to lead. So the time factor really makes sense, especially for contact us, but really just like what is that effectiveness? And also you can see sync delays. So do you have sync delays to your CRM? Is it taking loads of time? Also, you could have routing delays. So does it stay in like a random user, like a Marketo sync user or HubSpot sync user for a really long time before getting over to sales?
How many how many would you say you do? Because you could do two, or you could look at two and they could be fine, but there could
Well,
still be
yeah.
loads of issues, right?
Okay, so I'm saying do two, but like you could do a lot, right? Like you, and if anything, you could look at like all your different kind of sources. So depending on the time that you have, you know, another thing that could be interesting is go run that, go run a report also in Map and find these examples in your Map and not in CRM. Because if there was a sync error,
It's not going to be there.
it's not, it's not going to be in Salesforce. So I would look there and then maybe just see if you see any kind of like weird anomalies. But yeah, you can do more than two. But I just wanted to give an example of like making sure you do a blend of online and offline.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the important thing really to call out here, whether you do 2 or 100 or kind of look at a few, like actually get all the way through every single step, or like have some list to maybe catch issues that might be happening, is like just be proactive with
Yeah.
it. And this is one of those really important threads that has so many potential landmines and issues that could
Yeah.
happen along the way. And everyone, like, so much trust can be damaged. So many people can get pissed off if this breaks.
Yeah.
And you want to find an issue before someone else does, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be like 2 months later, oh, all of these leads weren't getting to sales from our, this new demo request form that we launched that like wasn't baked into the process or something. So just having that like regular test, kind of fitness test of like, how is this working? And make sure you can validate that. And then you're good, for another few weeks, or you could do this every 2 weeks or every month. I think you recommended in your newsletter, right? So just having that regular time to go back and make sure that everything's working for this particular use case is really important.
Yeah. Or like I said, like if you have an option to create like a subscription alert or something like that, or a report within your market automation platform to get sent to you like daily, even like that could be useful. The rest of the things I'm going to go through could even be a monitoring dashboard in CRM. But that one's a bit hard. I do suggest looking in your market automation platform first because of the sync thing that I was talking about. So the second one is all around data quality, and I feel like most people would fail in this test. But I would.
Data's hard.
Data's hard. The key thing here is to focus on like your key set of data. So think about what you need in order to sync to Salesforce or whatever CRM you have. If there's limitations there, usually for Salesforce users, it's last name or company name. Like the basics, first, do you have a full name? Is it like not junky? Do you have company names? Do you have email addresses for people? But then also there's just like beyond the actual like data on the person, it's more like what do you use for actual like ICP segmentation or routing, things that are mandatory processes. So that's where, good enough like address data becomes important, or revenues data. company size data. You might even have custom fields like number of mobile workers or whatnot. And maybe you need third-party tools to help get you that data. And you might be using an enrichment tool. Is that having errors? Like we've gone into systems, people are like, oh yeah, we have enrichment turned on. And we look at it, it's been getting errors for months,
Mhm.
So
Oh yeah.
just making sure that you check that. And then, like I said, anything that's being used for or is mandatory for scoring and routing, if you don't have any of that, you're not routing properly, you're not scoring people properly. And so those systems get broken. So it's simple. But the biggest thing is actually not that people get stuck with.
What is it?
It's that sometimes they have too many fields for the same thing.
Okay, I was going to bring up something that's probably related to that. Data dictionary.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that if you don't have a list of all of your key fields, go create one now, because start creating a data dictionary. And in the data dictionary, what you need is Google Sheet, whatever. Each row is a field. Each field has the purpose, the API name, the label, etc., what it's used for. Just get that down on paper, because most people listening to this, you probably have like 5 industry fields and 3 status fields and 12 phone number fields and all of this stuff. And like, anyone new starting or anyone, in different teams that isn't kind of like managing any of those particular fields may use the wrong field. So like you might be like, okay, well, I'm enriching industry, segment custom field, but then our RevOps team who's doing the routing is using, industry whatever field. Yeah. And like now you're enriching that, but it's not being used here. So going through kind of the first one you talked about with like the inbound process, going through that and thinking about what are the fields that are being leveraged in all of these automations all the way through, what are the fields that we're actually using, get everyone aligned on that, and then it's the data quality in those fields. I think you have to really figure that out, because otherwise, number one, test is going to fail, but then a lot of other tests are going to fail, right? Even just like sales, knowing what to look at on the page layout, or even having the right fields on the page layout, or using fields in, if you're like trying to do some kind of email personalization with fields, right? Like so much of this is reliant, like everyone knowing what the right field is. Yeah, and things that we see commonly go wrong. You're scoring based off a certain field, but you're routing based on a different field. You're running, like you said, your reports on one field, but you're doing your segmentation for your campaigns on another. You are using one account tier field in Salesforce, and someone created a duplicate like kind of field to track that in marketing automation platform. You're giving people nightmares, by the way. All of those things 100% happen. And like I said, the data dictionary, but also not only the data dictionary, but really like doing the checks, because sometimes you can have a data dictionary, but maybe a vendor like wasn't informed on the right field to use. Or, yeah. You need like the dictionary to start, and then you need to like actually look and see if the data is okay in the fields that you have in your dictionary. So yeah, 100%. And there's actually the question of the day. I'm going to go through one top tip as well to eliminate maybe unnecessary duplicative fields. So, number 3. Yeah. So number 3, I call this like campaign source attribution, but attribution gives everyone like deep feelings of like, oh, like how much pipeline gets influenced. No, that's not what I'm talking about here. So I'm actually thinking about the things that actually you need in order to do multi-touch attribution, and that's leveraging campaigns. Salesforce campaigns, Salesforce campaigns, right? Yeah. I mean, you can leverage like custom HubSpot campaigns or something, or custom objects, stuff like that. So those of you who are using HubSpot CRM, just having the where what information. Where does someone come from? What do they do? The channel offer. Like there's a lot of different ways to describe this, but it's tracking every single engagement / touch point in an object that you associate with the leads and contacts. The most logical place for most companies is in the Salesforce campaign. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So not to go into too much depth, but we suggest tracking your UTMs, you having an offer campaign, and then you stamp the UTMs, which is based on the UTM source and medium, sometimes other UTMs on that record. So you can actually see, okay, out of all my, responses and whatnot, where did they come from? And then also using those UTMs, you can have source information. Sometimes people just use UTM source and medium, and that's fine. And maybe the campaign name
But sometimes we'll have the be normalized fields where you can see it's like paid search, Google CPC, and then like the contact us campaign.
So what's the fitness test for this then? This one?
So one, I would run a report in like net new leads report or contacts if you're a contact link database, and see if you had any new people get created and cross filter and say not in a campaign, which would be useful. You can also maybe do this in your map and just see like using similar filters. One that'll give you a sense, because what we normally see here is not that people are getting added to the wrong campaigns. Not usually. Sometimes that happens, but it happens. But we actually see that people didn't account for like a new source of leads, or like now you have a chat bot and like where are those going, or you used a new content syndication vendor, no one told ops and there was no campaign created for it, things like that. So looking to see if there's people getting created that aren't attributed to a campaign. And then the source side is very similar. So looking at people that are just missing sources, have the wrong sources. Missing source, common ones are sales generated leads, not actually tying a sales generated source to that, and so forth. And so yeah, those are easy things that you can put in place. Like I said, you can have a monitoring dashboard just to look at fields coming in the wrong way, UTMs coming in the wrong way, campaign membership, people without campaign membership, so forth. So
yeah, okay,
yeah.
Number 4.
And then number 4 is probably the ones that people can like so many people would benefit from this test, and it's a huge thing that you can drive your business with, is like looking at the sales ready lead quality. It's like MQL, some people call it.
I can't wait until the day when we can just say
sales ready and not say AKA MQL,
also known as MQL.
We call it sales ready because you can enter the funnel beyond the MQL stage. But anyway, but if we're talking about actual MQLs being sent from marketing, or what is being deemed as qualified, that's actually what I'm talking about here. So I would run a report of sales ready leads and look at how many of those are being converted, moved out of the funnel. So like recycled, just qualified, looking at those reasons, and then digging into not only those specific reasons, but like, okay, the ones that have those top reasons, were there specific channels for that or campaigns? So that's really useful. Also, you'll maybe get a sense for disqualification on the side of like their firmographics. So not only is it giving you a sense of like, are we not using enough high intent to designate, who's qualified, but are we using the wrong fit to ICP to designate who's qualified? And both of those are necessary for actually delivering a lead that like someone wants to follow up with.
So I've got a question.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, you have a client, you've implemented, and this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, you've implemented a way to track the life cycle of the funnel. And you can look at it by the tipping point, right? So like, what are we sending to sales? And they're spending a lot on one particular channel. This channel is driving, net new names, engagements, but what it isn't driving is conversions into meetings, SQLs, or like whatever, the next stage in the pipe. So like meetings, opportunities, pipeline, etc. But they're spending a lot of money on it.
How much time have you given it?
Not a ton of time, so there could be a time component. You might need to let this marinate for a bit.
Offline channels need much longer.
This wasn't offline. This is digital.
It is digital.
But and you do this type of analysis and you look and you go, okay, so in the data, what I'm seeing is both a low conversion, but also that part of that low conversion could just be that sales reps, like when we look at those recycled reason, the sales reps, a lot of them are just, we set up automation to be like, hey, sales rep hasn't tried to engage with this person for 30 days, just auto recycle them. That's the primary reason.
Yeah.
Now, would you say that is, and I guess it's very nuanced here and you probably have to figure it out for each individual company, is it a problem that you would solve on the front end with maybe the channel that is driving the leads? Or is it more of like the SDRs follow up? Or is it both? Because part of you goes, okay, well, maybe the reason why SDRs aren't trying to engage with them and just letting them die is because they're also really early and low quality.
Yeah.
And I know we've got kind of a perspective that really should just be sending mostly just hand raisers to sales.
Yeah.
These definitely aren't hand raisers, but the company's like very invested in it. So like, how do you navigate that?
Well, I would look at the people that they're generating from those channels because
No, you definitely look at them, but like, how do you navigate like, okay, well, it's probably like you're sending these too early for sales, but the company's spending a lot of money on them and they want to send them to sales to try and get instant results, right? So but then they're not seeing those results.
So this is where it might be useful to think like, okay, do we need to run like a program that like we don't even involve sales to do some of that qualification if you're worried about it? So like sometimes you can run those into like a specific like nurture sequence or automated cadence or something like that, where it doesn't require someone to literally like personalize the emails and so forth. I would have that be, even if you're going to do that, you need to make sure the content like matches that persona and the pain points and stuff like that to make it worthwhile. But if sales is saying, hey, we actually don't really want to follow up with those, like we just want to work our target accounts or our named accounts or whatnot, or hand raisers, like we just want slam dunks, we don't want to nurture, then like you need to have that conversation. You need to say to them. And then marketing needs to make the best decision and be like, okay, well, should we just bypass the SDR and see if we actually can get responses without an SDR? If you can, then maybe you can find, are there like certain personas that are responding more? And then you can show that to your sales SDRs and be like, well, look, my automated SDR nurture thing got 5 meetings. Would you have wished you got those by me? But also there is a mix of like the juice worth the squeeze. So if you feel like you don't have a lot of people, like a lot of SDRs, a lot of sales reps, like you might need to find that balance of like, maybe you need to do more nurturing to those folks. Maybe you need to try and turn them into hand raisers. And how are you going to create a program to do that? Like just because you're investing a lot in a channel to bring in those names doesn't mean that like you have to put an AE or SDR in front of them. It might mean you need to convert them to the type of lead the SDR AE wants to follow
100%, yeah. And that's my perspective too, right? Yeah. If you're seeing them not convert, give them some more time to convert. Don't send them to sales so early. I think it's a very tightrope kind of situation to navigate though, right? For some people that I can empathize with, where it's like maybe this channel is, 60, 70% of your marketing budget.
Yeah.
And it isn't driving results maybe as quickly as some people think when you look at the tipping point model. So if you scale it back and you send them to SDRs like later, then it's going to delay potentially any results from that, potentially even longer. Or the Solon argument, you could state that argument. I still think, though, I would agree with you, which is like, well, if they're not converting and sales isn't following up, maybe ask sales, work with them, figure out why. And if it is truly like these people aren't ready, figure out how to get them ready, right?
So, and I think you need to think of, I think modern marketers need to think about like pipeline isn't always the end goal. Like it is, but it's not going to be the immediate end goal. Like you need to think about there's benefits to brand building. There's benefits to building a engaged contact database. There's benefit, and all those things won't like automatically turn into meetings or whatnot or opportunities, but they're still valuable to invest in. And so I think that we just need to be like more honest with ourselves.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah, that we could go much deeper on that in another podcast, but thought it'd be worth just like chatting.
Okay, the last two I'm just going to touch on quickly because I feel like they're very straightforward, but I would do an email deliverability test, not only on like email that you're sending out of your market automation platform, but also your sales engagement platform, which is probably the more important one to check. If you do have someone like managing your DNS and they get like they're using like an email monitoring tool, go straight to them too, because they'll give you insights. So if you use SendGrid or anything like that to send out your emails from outreach, and they'll get really good insights into, are you making it into the inbox? Are you getting marked at spam and so forth? There are also free mailbox tools that you can do. But I suggest like having a deliverability rate out of your market automation platform and as like 99%. like,
why not 100?
I mean
Come on.
100, but like a
I'm
minimum
joking.
of 99%.
All right.
And then the last one, revenue funnel metrics, like
I know, but one thing to consider with that, though, there is a difference between delivery
deliverability
rate
and
and
reputation.
deliverability, right?
Yeah.
Like, you might have an email deliver,
Right.
but not in the inbox.
Yeah.
So
So that's
an
why like
important
going
thing to think about.
deeper is like really useful. And that's why using some of those mailbox tools to actually check also your domain reputation and have you been
Yep.
marked as blacklisted and stuff is really important. So
Yep.
if you want more details on that, we have like a whole audit basically. And then the last one, we talk about funnel metrics so much. I just want to like not spend the whole time talking about it, but really, can you do 3 things with your funnel metrics? Can you report on volume? Can you report on conversion? And can you report on velocity? And like bonus, like you're also then able to report on repeat journeys without impacting your historical data. And if you can do that, then that's great. And if it's accurate. And then the thing I would say that people get mixed up when they're not doing this well is they are not looking at things like cohorted. They're actually just looking at like how many people went into MQL stage this quarter, how many of them went into meeting book, and then they'll try and run conversion rates. That's not a true conversion rate.
No, because it's not the people, the previous stage that you're calculating in the next stage. So yeah.
But like enterprise businesses are doing that.
I mean, yeah, a lot of companies do that. That's because they don't have
the infrastructure to actually report on that. So
I would say though, one thing though,
and it could be actually directionally right. I will say, like sometimes it's not like completely far off, but it's not accurate.
It's not a conversion rate. That's why there's a.
It's not a conversion rate. It's like a volume.
Yeah, it's just
volume.
Yeah, like if you're looking at number of sales ready in Q1 and number of meetings in Q1 as 2 separate things, and then going like those number of meetings is the converted from those sales ready. That's not true because most of those meetings probably are actually from sales ready, like not in like maybe different quarters. But like I would say when you think about, we call it the 3 V's, so volume, velocity, and conversion. Volume is where you want to start, right? If that situation we talked about there, where you can see how many meetings we got, how many sales ready, how much pipeline, both from a dollar point of view and volume, like that isn't actually that hard to get generally.
Yeah.
Maybe when you bring in the multi-trip component, it gets harder, but it's the full end-to-end conversion rates where it actually is exponentially harder, and including so conversion and velocity, exponentially harder than just the volume.
Yeah.
So I think some companies can survive on just volume, and then try and kind of imply conversion rates from that, because the lift to get to like true, proper, cohorted all the way through the funnel conversion rates for some companies can be quite a big lift.
Yeah.
I do think though you should have it on your roadmap and try and build the foundation. You should be trying to get there. Yeah. Whether you need to get there like today or tomorrow is another question, but have it as a goal to get there eventually.
Yeah, and I forget if I mentioned this in the newsletter, but I was going to compare this to the mile run. It's like some people might get halfway, and like, okay, don't feel so bad on yourself, but the best thing to do is like, can you complete the mile? You know, but it might be hard for some folks, and that there's different factors of why. But it should be like an aspirational goal. And honestly, these days, like, it doesn't have to be that aspirational, especially if you start putting in the infrastructure early.
For the mile or for the funnel?
For the funnel. For the mile too. But what do you actually need to run that mile is also something. Anyway. But yeah, so those are my go-to-market ops fitness tests.
I like it. Yeah, go do it. Let us know what people find.
And the thing is, like, not to pass all of them. There's going to be different levels. You got to like score yourself, like, out of 10 or something. Give yourself, and don't give yourself 7s for everything.
Yeah. And the thing is that the goal isn't to have all of this perfect. It's never going to be perfect, right? The goal is to make sure that you understand where some of the gaps are, and that you have like a backlog of tasks where you are trying to fix these gaps while also building out the scalable architecture over time. You have a strong roadmap, and the items that you find here go onto the roadmap, and also catching things proactively.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be as an ops team is only reactive. You're going to have to react to things all the time, particularly if you're under-resourced, but you want to be able to bake in some time to be proactive and find the stuff, because that's where you build trust with people.
Yeah. Don't wait for people to bring
Don't
you
let
problems.
the SDRs find the stuff that's broken first, right?
Yeah.
That's going to happen anyway.
It's going to happen.
Like, try and limit that as much as possible.
Yeah.
All right. So GTM or GTFO. So if you haven't heard this section before, is where one of us brings something to the other person hasn't seen, and we have to say if we like it or not, basically, right? So you're going to bring me something. I have no idea what this is.
I just wanted to get your perspective. So I think now we're back to, I mean, we have been for a few years, but I feel like this year people are like back in the swing of like, should I go to conferences or events? And where, like, is it worth my time? Especially if you can get sponsored. Some companies can't afford to sponsor everyone to go to. If you're a really small company, we're kind of one of those. Unfortunately, we can't pay for everyone to go everywhere. But what is like, well, first of all, are big conferences worth going to anymore? Like, with so much data and AI and like YouTube, and it's like, do I need to go to that?
I might have to give me a second to think about this one. I think because I haven't been to, like, I've been around a conference. Like every year when Dreamforce is going on, we go up to the city. We don't get a ticket, but we just kind of hang out with people. We see people. We meet people. Maybe go to OpStars. But
so is that your answer, basically? You didn't think it was?
I think there's seasons. So like when I was earlier in our career, both of us. Yeah, I feel like I got a lot of value out of it. So like when you're trying to learn, you're like you're trying to build your network, and you're on like that steep learning curve at the beginning of your career. Yeah, I think trying to go to things because you're just going to be immersed in the thing, right?
Totally.
And like I remember going to like Marketo conferences and all that.
Yeah.
Marketo Summit, and I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I met a lot of people. And it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And I would say that's probably still true. Now, this season of our life, when we've got 2 kids, we're running this business, it is a lot harder to find the time. Yeah. Probably more because of the kids, right?
Yeah.
But so for anyone that is in the same season that we're in, I don't actually feel bad about, I don't get that much. I get a little bit of FOMO when I see everyone like having fun at these things, but I don't feel like I'm actually missing out much on the educational learning side of it because of everything that you said, right? You can go on LinkedIn, you can go on YouTube, you're learning a lot just kind of in your day to day. So I feel like to go to something to try and learn something at this season, I don't feel that massive of a need to like disrupt my family life and business and everything to go and do that. But I would say what I'm starting to think about is I still think there's like a different component of like networking, meeting people, kind of creating relationship side of it. That maybe that there's like a business reason to do that, but more just a personal kind of hunger for that, right? Yeah. You know, COVID hit. That's when we had our first kid, right before COVID, and it was like, okay, well then. You kind of were locked down with COVID, and then also after COVID, you kind of like still have that restriction, being able to get out as much. Now we've got kids, so I feel like for me, just personally, now both of the girls are like a little bit older. I'm starting to feel like I want to get out there more, and just and whether there's a huge like business goal tied to it or like personal kind of educational goal tied to it is actually less of important to me. It's more about something that can still be convenient. Like, I don't know if I want to fly somewhere yet and kind of go away for a few days, but it'll be like maybe go up to the city again for the day or whatever, where you can meet people, network, and kind of just like be immersed in this kind of scene or like this kind of industry that we're in, and just get maybe just like kind of that personal benefit from just being around people. Yeah. So GTM or GTFO, going to industry events, I would say GTM for anyone really, but I would say for my own personal experience, if you are in a season where it's really hard for you to do it, there's plenty of other things you can do to like keep on top of things.
I think also if you're in that season, replace it with doing certification, especially around like AI. In my opinion,
Like this season, like season of like where you can't get out, do certification. Yeah, I don't. What certifications are there for AI that you can think of? I mean,
well, there are certain tools now that offer university, and when I say certification, I mean like teach yourself basically how to use them,
yeah,
immerse
okay.
yourself, maybe run a program to like get more comfortable with prompting. Like there's like clay boot camps now, there's like, just their university, there's chat gpt, there's LinkedIn probably courses, Udemy, Coursera, like go, maybe there's play, some people just maybe need the basics to feel like less intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like a campaign, like operations person who feels like too comfy in like email, like the way that we execute campaigns is going to massively change. And I would think about like immersing myself into figuring out like, okay, well, how can campaign creation, go to market execution, outbound, because outbound is probably going to be more marketing led than
Marketing
ever.
ops led.
Yeah.
Oh, well, marketing and marketing.
Marketing ops and marketing.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Before
right.
it was just like, oh, sales, go do your thing. Now it's like a huge part of your marketing mix. You can't just rely on inbound.
Particularly for companies where SDRs are part of the marketing org as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, now more than ever, we have to all be trying to kind of future-proof ourselves, our businesses, and there are multiple ways to do that. You don't have to go to things in person to do that. Maybe there's an advantage because you immerse yourself in that thing for a day is a bit more than just, watching a couple of YouTube videos over a month. But I still think there's plenty of ways that you can do it if you're just not able to get something in person.
Yeah.
And then if you can, kill a few birds with one stone, where you're like education and networking and meeting some old friends and kind of just feeling like part of this, go to market community and just immersing yourself in that, is you can get all of those benefits. And potentially if you run a business and you might meet people that could turn into customers as well, then I think it's worth the trip. But again, don't feel bad if you can't do it. There's plenty of people out there with kids and lives and stuff. So
yeah,
whatever.
All right, I agree.
So GDM.
Yeah. Okay, the last one, I got a question on LinkedIn. I had talked about AI and how AI, like how you use AI, especially for like analysis of your data, is only going to be as good as like the data that you feed into it.
So I feel like I've actually seen more people talk about that recently. Just side comment, which I'm so grateful for, because it's like, I think there's been this expectation. Sorry, I've completely interrupted you here, but like there's expectation like, oh, AI, come in, we'll throw it on our data and be like, I'm now going to know everything.
Yeah.
But if your data is a complete mess, it's just going to read what is in those fields.
It's going to give
and just tell you the complete wrong thing.
Yeah.
How could it look at your data and be like, oh, okay, just a very simple example. Lead comes in and you've got your data collection wrong, you've got data standardization wrong, and it doesn't get added to a Salesforce campaign or source information. So it just looks like, it came out of thin air. Throw AI on that and tell me, what insight is going to pull out of it, right?
It's going to tell you marketing's not doing anything.
Yeah, tell you marketing's, be like, you spent $2 million on marketing and all of these leads just got created by sales.
Yeah.
So it's like, the underlying data is so important. And I really hope everyone gets that.
Yeah.
Because, and talk about future-proofing yourself, you need to get your data in order now if you want to start layering on AI stuff. Like if you've been putting this off for years because it's like, humans can kind of look at it and just, we know what campaigns we ran, we know this, we can kind of like imply a few things. Throw an AI in there with maybe not as much context, you're just going to get weird results. So start working on your data quality now. Anyway, did I just steal your answer?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Actually.
Okay, go.
But it is more focusing on that data quality aspect. So someone said, like, what are some tools that I can use? Just so I don't butcher the question. I've been looking to start normalizing fields like job title. Any recs on AI tools that would do that? So So one thing, and we talked about actually enrichment tools earlier, and I think before it was like, okay, let me just pick the best one for my company. Let's use a webhook, call it, pull in those fields into the 30 fields that they make us create from the package, and then pull that data into fields that are empty or normalize them. But I think now that people realize one, sometimes that source isn't great for all regions. Sometimes it doesn't have all the data that you need. Sometimes the data is wrong. Well, not sometimes, a lot of time. And also it's expensive. They knew at the time that like, hey, we're gonna pay you even when you try to enrich someone and we give you back shitty information. Like so and then they're like, oh, okay, now I need to go buy a tool for UK data. Now I need to buy a tool for email addresses because we don't trust the email addresses from that other tool.
Or another tool that gives you like very specific data points that might not be in the Zoom infos of the world
or industry. Oh, we need the healthcare database. And then that leads to what we said earlier, where you might have now a bunch of fields for the same piece of data, and which one do you use? So there's a few tools that you could do. I would say like right now, if you want to test out some like actual getting the enrichment, putting in your system. Clay is a good one. Waterfall.io is a good one. And the reason why I like both of those is what's in that name. You can waterfall. So not only do you have to now pay for a bunch of subscriptions.
Maybe explain waterfall just to people. I think most people might know what it is. But
so say you have a record and now it gives you access into multiple sources to enrich that data. So say it's like company size or whatever. And you can use Clay to call other sources of data, but also if you just you could call tools, multiple tools to kind of pull in that data and do a waterfall. So it would look at, okay, can I get data from this? No, move on to the next one. Can I get data from this? Move on to the next one, so forth. Sometimes you can get actually to say, pull in the data from all of them, but like I can decide which one has the best quality and coverage. And so the benefit of that is you're only paying for the data that you are going to use or that you're trying to get. So that can be cost effective. And then also you can account for things like coverage. And then also you can try and get data that we never had access to before. Some people have a job title that they just plug in for events, but like, what's the job title that they have on their LinkedIn profile? I want to know that one, So LinkedIn, like you can go look at LinkedIn for the job title. And then also people move jobs and so you want to be able to actually pick up like when someone moves job based on their LinkedIn, not based on what Zoom info has. So it's a great way to get more accurate data. And so I think that is the future of kind of data enrichment, because you can get access to so many sources without having to have like one, like be beholden to like one point vendor. It'd be like saying like, hey, you need to shop at one grocery store for the rest of your life. You can't go to other ones. So if they don't have that specialty sauce that you need, sorry,
What specialty sauce are you thinking about?
I don't know, like a chili crisp or something,
Solid.
Yeah. So that's my answer. I'd say maybe look at Clay. There's probably other tools out there too. But the benefit of that one is you can also, if you're already paying for some of those vendors, you can at least then be smarter about how you use your credits, which is usually how your contract is structured. So, yeah.
Agreed. All right.
Well, that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you like this episode, share it with a friend or a colleague, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.